we've been trying to make a anusandhana, as we find in this Mangalacharan, following the footsteps of the mother. Amba tvam anusandadhami. Now in this anusandhana, trying to follow the steps of the mother, the first clue that we have so far received from the Lord in his song is about the Buddhi. We discussed the topic of Buddhi last time, because the Lord enjoins or asks us to take a refuge in the Buddhi. Buddhau sharanam anvichcha. So that injunction has been given, and as you all know, because I'm not going into all the details and all the verses, the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita ends with a description of one who has taken a refuge in the Buddhi. It is called the Sthita Prajna Prakarana. So the first goal has been set forth in the second chapter at the very outset. And we must also remember that, as we do in this chanting, that Gita is the quintessence of the Upanishads, and it is also itself an Upanishad, as we discussed at the very beginning. So the Upanishad is based on the search after the Atman, or the Self. So it is called Atma Vidya or Brahma Vidya. The Gita also is in search of the Self. And in the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, at the very beginning, the Lord gives us a clue to the nature of the Self. I will request you to go through those particular verses in the second chapter, which elaborates the nature of the Self. At the very beginning, after he begins his discourse with Ashocyananvasochastvam in verse 11, then he goes on, first of all, we can say from verse 16, this Self is the eternal. Na sato vidyate bhavo. In that way, the ultimate shot or reality is the Self. Then he goes on, Abhinashitu tadviddhi, verse 17, then it is Anashi, again verse 18, then Nayang hanti nahannate, 19, then Najayate mriyate va in verse 20, and so on. Again in verse 24, Accheddoyam adajyoyam, verse 25, Abhyaktoyam achintyoyam. So all these are descriptions about the nature of the Self. So the real instruction or teaching has all been given in chapter 2. And therefore it is significantly named as Sankhya Yoga. The term Sankhya means Samyak Jnana or Jnana, the true knowledge, and the true knowledge always pertains to the Self. So Sankhya Jnana means Atma Jnana. These are the basic things we must get hold of before we want to go deep into the Bhagavad Gita's teaching. So the very basis is Atma Jnana, on which the entire edifice is constructed. And that has been given in a nutshell in all these verses. And on the attainment of that, as I've again and again pointed out, Gita is not a book of metaphysics, just describing the reality, but it also shows the way how to attain or reach that reality. So we are discussing about that. And the first command we got is Buddhau sharanam anvichcha. Other commands have been given, we have discussed all of them. But here the clue is given. First get hold of this buddhi. And on getting hold of this buddhi, what happens? What is the actual attainment? That is described at the end of the second chapter, about which I have already referred to you, beginning from verse 55 up to 72. I have told you times without number how Mahatma Gandhi, the father of the nation, he made this as the goal of his life. How to attain this state of Sthita Prajna. Because he knew that only by becoming a Sthita Prajna can one attain the self. So therefore he made that his goal of life. So incidentally I refer to that. So taking that Sthita Prajna as our immediate goal, the Lord then proceeds from chapter 3, third chapter. Step by step, as we are discussing, we are now trying to follow in the footsteps of the mother, Bhagavata Gita. So actually, the essence of the cream of the teaching has been given in chapter 2, and therefore it is called Sankhya Yoga. Now the journey towards the goal, that begins with chapter. In almost all our scriptures, all our philosophical texts also, this is the Indian method. The first set the goal before you, because we must have a clear conception about what we want to attain. Otherwise, we must stop halfway and think that we have reached the goal. So one must have a complete idea, a very clear idea about the ultimate destination. And that ultimate destination, as I have told you, is termed as Atman or Brahman. So significantly, if you look into the last verse of the second chapter, it ends with Brahma Nirvana Mrithyati. You attain that Brahma Nirvana. So if you look into the Patanjali Yoga Darshana, there also, in the first section, it is Samadhi Pada. Samadhi is the goal. The next section is the Sadhana Pada. Similarly, in the Brahma Sutra, you will first find in the first section the nature of Brahman, etc. The goal, Athato Brahma Jigyasa, what is that Brahman? Janamadhyasya Jataha, and so on and so forth. The nature of Brahman, Sarupa Lakshana, Tatastha Lakshana, this and that. So goal is set forth in the Brahma Sutra, first section. The second section is called Tarkapada. That is through meditation, through your ratiocination, you try to have a clear conception. The journey starts. So you can have this idea wherever you look in our ancient things. They first set the goal and thereafter they set the path. And also they speak about the attainment. So here in the second chapter, the goal has been set forth. The attainment also has been indicated in the section of Sthita Prajna at the very end. When you attain that self, attain that Atman, what happens? Or the Brahman. And now the actual journey begins from chapter. But as we have discussed already, the main problem in our life is that we are all involved in a whirlpool of action. We are all being rushed forth. Nobody can stay easy at his own station. Everything is changing. Everything is moving. This is the basic fact of life. And we get involved, entangled in this and want to extricate ourselves from it. And when a big holocaust like the battle of Kurukshetra or something like that comes in our life, we almost become mad. We lose our nerves. This exactly happened to Arjuna. So this is an extreme case with which the Gita begins. So Arjuna here symbolizes a man who is completely lost in the tension, in the immediate holocaust that is before him, and the first reaction is to turn his back from this. He wants to escape. I hope you remember all those verses where he frankly says there is better to go to the forest, beg one's food, than involve oneself in this bloody warfare, killing one's own kinsmen, and then enjoy a blood-stained kingdom. Rudhira pradigdhan bhunjiya bhogan. So this is an extreme case, as I've already told you. But how to extricate oneself from this? This is the basic problem. And whatever has been told by the Lord so far in the chapter 2, that confounds even more the seeker or Arjuna. Because even in the second chapter, I have given you the number of verses, he again and again asks Arjuna to take up the arms. You will find it, first of all, in the very second verse, that Uttishta, a third verse, Klaibhyangamasmagama, and then again you will find verse 37 and 38, two consecutive verses, Uttishta kaunteya juddhaya kritanishchaya. Again in 38, tato juddhaya jujjasva. So inciting him to war, in plain words. Inciting him to war, and at the same time pointing him to the heaven of peace. Sashantim adhigacchati apuryamanam achala pratishtham vihaya kaman jassarvan. Give up all desires, attain peace. So naturally the poor Arjuna, or seekers like us, feel absolutely more confounded. I wanted some light from you, but you are already confounding. But as Sri Krishna Prem points out, the teaching is not confused, but our mind is confused. The disciple is confused. So we must try to understand the real import of the teaching. That is why we are here. We are trying to find out what actually the Lord means. What does He want of us? First of all, as Sri Krishna Prem points out, we have already discussed that point. He is forcing the disciple to transcend the ordinary levels of thinking by having recourse to the higher intuitive knowledge of the Buddhi. By this Buddhau Sharanamannitya, what does the Lord intend? Bringing to birth in his soul a new and synthetic knowledge. Mark the words, how beautifully put. Bringing to birth in his soul. It is not in the intellect, in the soul. And something will spring up, bringing to birth a new and synthetic knowledge. We discussed at the very outset that all problems are problems of harmony. So that synthesis must be achieved, a new and synthetic knowledge. About that, the Lord is trying to inculcate a teaching. It aims at setting forth the yoga or path to the goal as a coherent whole. We don't find any coherence. That is why Arjuna accuses that you are talking incoherently. You are asking me to take up arms, yuddhaya jujjasva. At the same time you are pointing to that Brahmi sthiti, parashanti and all that. So what is the coherence? So here we must make that coherent. And Krishna Prem very nicely points out from the standpoint of psychology that there are two main types of the aspirant. One of them we can call extrovert, the other introvert. There is a make-up in some of us who always feel like doing some sort of activity. They are active, energetic. And there are some who want to withdraw, to recoil. They are called introverts. But a balance must be achieved. For the introverts, it is the yoga of knowledge. For the extroverts, it is the yoga of action. But please remember, from the very outset, Sri Krishna points out that no one-sided view can be the whole truth. These are golden words here commented upon by Sri Krishna Prem. that no one-sided view can be the whole truth. Because there is always a tendency, as I've just pointed out, in our makeup. Some of us are extroverts who always try to engage ourselves in unceasing stream of action. And there is just the opposite tendency of withdrawing from everything, to remain in seclusion all by oneself. But both these are one-sided approaches. And therefore the Gita from the very beginning wants to bring that whole truth, that synthetic truth, that balanced truth. We must try to find that out from the teaching. First of all, he points out at the very beginning of the third chapter that cessation from all action is simply impossible. This fact must be born in our heart. If we want to withdraw, if there is in our nature a propensity to become an introvert, we must always remember that complete cessation from all action is the second important thing. Is we are bound by the results of our action and must experience the consequences, whether pleasant or painful. This is the second basic fact of our life. This is the theory of karma phala, so on and so forth. So we can't cease from action, and we are bound by the results of our actions and must experience the consequences, whether pleasant or painful. This is the law of karma. This is a fact of nature which may be experienced by anyone for himself. This is very important point. In the third point, action and reaction are equal and opposite. These things have been very beautifully brought out by Sri Krishna Prem in his luminous commentary. First of all, the Lord points out that all lives are interlocked in one vast whole. You can't live separately. I want to withdraw. I want to be alone with myself. All life is interlocked in one vast whole. And therefore, what should we do? Action is inevitable. It is nonetheless a source of bondage. We come to that. Then, how to get that freedom? Action is but a necessary evil. It is a part of life. So therefore, Sri Krishna says, some take the view that this rich and wondrous life must have been no better than a ghastly mistake, which had far better never have occurred. We are generally prone to take such a conclusion. But the entire view is completely changed by this wonderful teaching with which the third chapter begins. Don't take this view of action. The first teaching, as we just gave the hint last day, with which we want to deal today, action is a sacrifice. The entire thing changes immediately. Action is always action, but that action, if you look deep into it, is really a sacrifice. If you take it in that spirit, what will happen? The lower or sense mind is to be sacrificed to the higher, and the higher to be united with the Buddha. Again we come back to the Buddha Sharanam. In a wonderful interlocked way, the entire teaching of the Bhagavad Gita is based. Let us get hold of the different strands, how they're interlocked, how they're intertwined. So the first step, with the light of the Buddhi, we now enter into the first step towards Atma. This first step is named as Yajna, sacrifice. So you're imposing something on us? He says, no. This is the very basis of creation. And you read those verses by yourself and try to find out this eternal law. Verse 10 of the third chapter, Sahajagya praja srishtva prajo vacha prajapatihi. Prajapati himself, the creator, he made this yajna as the only guiding principle of entire creation. It is not something which is being imposed from outside. It is the basic law of creation. Your trouble is, our trouble is, the tension and everything is we have deviated from the law. We are not performing sacrifice. We are all involved in self-centered action. That is the root of the problem. Action is not the problem. Because action, activity, that is the main principle of development. But that development is being thwarted. The entire purpose of that development, of that action, is being missed because we are not doing in the spirit of a sacrifice, which is the basic law of creation. Sahajagya praja srashtva purovacha prajapati anena prasavishadvam. You become prosperous, you become prosperous. That is what the Prajapati told the prajas, the created being. I am giving you this principle through which you can prosper. I have created you, but I have created you so that you may grow, you may evolve. So that law of growth, law of evolution is this principle of yajna. I am not elaborating much on that, but read by yourself this thing which begins from verse 10 of the 3rd chapter. But let us look into the main features of yajna. Yajna is based on two principles, as I possibly told you also last time. One is called Vidhi, another is called Vishnu. Yajna must be performed according to a set law. This is called Vidhi or injunction. You must sit facing the east. You must get the sticks with which you should perform the sacrifice on this side. The sacrificial altar must be absolutely square. I am giving some examples only. Everything is bound by injunction. Sometimes we revolt and we always accuse, all this paraphernalia of so many intricate things that has spoiled the entire teaching of the Hindus. Do this, don't do this in this way, not in the other way, and so on and so forth. So this is Vidhi. Everything must conform to a law. And the second thing about yajna, it must be directed towards a broad ideal. This broad ideal is named as Vishnu. Vishnu, the root meaning of the word Vishnu is a sarva vyapaka. Beveshti, sarvam. He who encompasses everything. So all my actions must be a sacrifice to that inherent wide principle which is at the very heart of creation. Call it Vishnu, call it Shiva, whatever you like. The name does not matter. But for a higher ideal, a broad ideal. And if you are interested, you will find the Lord Himself describes different varieties and grades and levels of yajna that you will find here in details. He has given how this yajna is performed by different types of people. Also in the chapter 4, you will find again, beginning from verse 25 and up to verse 28 or 29 or 30. Because this principle of yajna continues from 3 and 4. It starts with 3 and details are given in chapter 4. So try to find out the different levels or varieties of this yajna. And if you want to find out how this yajna is the basic law of creation and not superimposed from outside, it is nothing artificial, all of us can verify it. The Lord Himself has said in the 4th chapter, Shabdadin Vishayananye Indriyaganishu Juhati. This sacrifice is being performed by each one of us. What does the sacrifice consist of? A fire and some objects which we offer in that fire. For us, ordinary human beings, this fire is kindled or is already alive in all the different apertures of the senses, chakshu, karna, nasika, juha, etc. And the outer objects, shabda, sparsha, rupa, rasa, gandha, they are being offered in that fire. And by that we grow. We are born as an infant. And as our senses grow, that is, the fire is kindled more and more. When you are young, the fire is at its full height, as it were. And we are trying or grabbing as much of the outer world as possible. And by that we are growing. So this principle of sacrifice or yajna is continuing everywhere. But the nature can be changed. That is another thing. But this is the basic law of our growth. As we have just discussed, Prajapati himself told his Praja, Anena Prasavishyadvam Eshabo Vastu Ishta Kama Dhuk. Whatever you desire in life, everything you can, as it were, milk out of that. Everything will pour to you if you really adhere to this principle of yajna. So, let us now leave apart the different types of yajna and other things. That will take us too far. But the main thing in each type is a center and a circumference. As soon as we start yajna, transform ordinary karma into yajna, what happens? Life henceforward gets a goal or center towards which all our activities are directed. One center, towards that all radii, they move to that one center, join to that one center. This was the ancient Hindu ideal. There was some deity installed in Narayana Shila, Shalagrama Shila, or a Shivalinga, or a particular idol, Rama or Krishna, or a picture, whatever may be. He was taken as the presiding deity of the household. In former times it was Agni, in Vedic times. So the Agni is to be worshipped. Everything is to be offered to that Agni. So that Agni here is transformed into these different deities which we worship. But whatever is done in the household, it is for the Lord. Everything is first offered to the Lord or the household deity, and then it is taken for enjoyment by others as prasada. And there is an indication, Jagya Shishtam Mrita Bhujo. Then you partake of Amrita, nectar, which comes to you as Shishta, means Abhashishta, the residue of the Jagya. So all the actions, they are performed with only one particular end in view, worshipping the central figure. So, the center towards which all our activities are directed. If you want to direct our actions to that one goal or center, a line therefore has to be drawn, keeping the center in view. The circumference is drawn, as we all know, by keeping the center in view, and therefore from this time all our actions are bound within a circumference and directed towards one center. This is the main principle of yajna. You must have read, and also recently in the TV serial you must have also found, that when both Ramachandra and later Lakshmana left Sita, they put a circle round her and asked her not to overstep that line. So this line must be drawn, and if you just overstep that, you are caught by the Rakshasa. You are in the grip of the Rakshasa. And all the sad story begins thereafter. And there also, these indications are there and around all these stories. We are tempted by something, the golden deer, and we rush out of that circle. So this circle must be drawn, keeping the center always in view. Never leave that. This is, as I've already told you, is the Vidhi, is the Vidhan. That law cannot be transgressed. And we must always try to converge towards the center. So from this, what we can conclude, Yajna is thus a harmonious action. It is not working in a haphazard fashion, in a pell-mell way, but all our actions must be harmonious actions. So long we were being driven by the selfish desires. Indriyanang hi charatam janamanonu vidhiyate tadasya harati pragyam vayurnava vibhamhasi. We are being tossed, as it were. We are being taken on this side, again on this side. So all our actions were incongruous with the purpose of our life. It was not taking us to the center, but we are getting away and away from the center. This is called distraction. And therefore, we want integration. And for that, Yajna must be taken recourse to, and Yajna is harmonious action. This is the first teaching of the Bhagavad Gita. He asks us, transformed all karma into Yajna. We shall conclude today with two more aspects of this Yajna, which has been very beautifully and clearly pointed out by the Lord. Another thing about sacrifice is reciprocity, another marked feature, characteristic of it. We shall find reference to that in this verse of the 3rd chapter, that verse 11, Devana bhavayatanena te deva bhavayantu. How scientifically all these things have been taught. The instruction has been given. But we think Gita is a religious book of religious people. Nothing to learn from it. But it teaches us the very basic law of life. What is this reciprocity? The entire creation is sustained by this one principle of give and take. The gods give us our sustenance. We forget that. And we must also sustain them by our offerings to them. The rains are being poured from heaven. They are coming to you unasked. When that doesn't come, as you now find, drought, this and that, but we are not giving anything in return to them. They are copiously, profusely. They are giving everything to us. I am not dealing with that this evening. The rishis of the Upanishads, they looked at the entire creation as Pancha Mahajagya. There are 5 great sacrifices. I hope to deal with the next day. And there we will find how this principle is working from the heaven down to the earth. But what are we doing? Are we giving anything back to them? If we don't give them back, the Gita calls, then you are a thief. Jo bhungte stena evasha, Mark verse 12, using very strong words. You don't give anything. Then you steal, you misappropriate. They have given you so much, but you haven't given back even a penny back to them. You have misappropriated the entire thing, entire sum. Jo bhungte stena evasha. So this is the main principle. The whole universe, as Sri Krishna Prem beautifully states, the whole universe is linked in one stupendous sacrifice. The entire universe is being sustained. The whole universe is linked. This is the link principle, please remember, with which I shall close today. The link principle. We are all cut off from the center, cut off from the moorings, but we want to establish, get back to that center. This is the link principle by which you can again establish our link with the center and thereby get replenished, revitalized. Unfortunately, we don't take so much care to probe into this wonderful concept of Yajna, on which the entire Hindu pantheon is based. That Yajna was symbolized only by the outer fire and the outer offerings. But what is the basic principle behind it? Nobody can escape from that. And by escaping from that, deviating from that, we have brought all this calamity on us. The calamity now faces Arjuna. The tension that he is now in is all because we are not following the true path of Yajna. We shall elaborate it later on next day in verse 3rd and 4th.